Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
Two Doomed Men podcast, the greatest, ready? The greatest podcast in the history of the country, perhaps even the world by far. I don't think anyone comes close.
What's up, Doom Nation, and welcome back. You are listening to the Two Doom Men podcast. As always, it's Scagz and yours truly, the captain. Scagz, you coming in loud and clear? You hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. You hear me?
Yes.
Wow, am I loud? And there's an echo. Boy, after any of these in-person episodes that we do, especially something like the Halloween podcast, like we were saying before, this whole place is a complete disaster. It took me a full day to clean up, and now I didn't have much
could actually
time.
hear the echo on your end.
Can you? Oh, yeah, boy. I don't know. Keep talking, Cap.
Yeah, so as Scagz was saying, we just filmed last weekend our Halloween special that will be coming out this Thursday, October 31st. Quite the calamity of errors. What a night it was. I think you guys are going to be entertained.
Yeah, I was. How's that? On now, right?
Yeah, you're better now.
That's how I sound. That's how I felt after the party here.
Yeah,
on Saturday night. That echo.
The video is embarrassingly funny, but the last images I have in my head of what the cabin looked like at 4 a.m. was just a total. Yeah, the cabin might have looked worse than Kamala Harris's campaign.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Like I told you, it looked like a giant potato chip walked in here and exploded. That's what it looked like. But everything's cleaned up now, and we are ready to go. We promised we'd get one more political episode in before Election Day, which is week from today. 1 week exactly from right this very moment at 8 o'clock, I believe, the polls will be closing. And we will be hosting an Election Day marathon. We will be live. The captain should be here in person with me again as well. We'll be live streaming for a couple of hours. We'll be keeping an eye on what's going on, covering the results. We're going to have guests, some of them in person, some of them remotely. It's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait. See what happens.
Yeah, and I guess I'll show up with, a bulletproof vest and a 9 strapped to my hip just in case.
Oh, bullet bourbon, perhaps something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I want. I don't know if I want to do another all nighter, just drinking all night. So
I don't know if I can at the moment, but it's going to be an interesting. It's going to be an interesting time next week. It's an interesting time right now. Obviously we're going to be talking about Trump on Joe Rogan. We're obviously going to be talking about Trump selling out Madison Square Garden a week and a half before the election, and just how Kamala's campaign team just doesn't get it, just doesn't get what they need to do, or she's just genuinely incapable of doing what needs to be done. The only numbers I saw so far was like Trump and Rogan got what 20 million views in the first 20 hours, like a million views an hour.
Yeah, I mean, Rogan gets 20 million on a non, like when they're like reviewing soil samples with like biologists and shit.
Yeah.
And Trump, I don't know what he's at now, but I'm sure it's in the hundreds of millions, definitely. Probably
Yeah.
every single person, at least enough people to fill up the United States probably watched it, I'd say.
And for Kamala to try and be giving Joe directions and terms to have her on his show is...
We'll talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just wild. Go ahead. Where we starting, pal?
Oh no, yeah. I mean, I think I thought we could start with Tony Hinchcliffe and his whole shebang. That's what the episode is titled after.
As Chris just said.
Yeah, and it's the last week or two, or maybe probably the last month of the election here has just devolved into just name calling. That's it. That's all it is at this point. There's nothing else. There was very lack of nuance to begin with, at least from the Democrat side of things. Trump, I'll give him his credit, went on all the shows, talked a lot of nuance, talked a lot of shit as well. I said in the last episode, I thought he ran a really good campaign here at the end. The other side is just name calling. That's
they
it.
got
That's all it is.
They got nothing outside of I hate Donald Trump, and it shows.
Our buddy Chris, as a Puerto Rican, king of the trash realm. I'm not offended by Tony Hinchcliffe. You know what? I didn't even think of that. But yes, Chris, he is the king of the trash realm. And as you will all see, we are going to get into Puerto Rico trash jokes, etc. So I thought what we could do is, you come to the Two Doomed Men podcast because we deprogram you from the propaganda. So I thought what we could do is just play Tony Hinchcliffe stand-up bit at the MSG rally, right? It's a speech. It's a stand-up comedy bit. It's about 11 minutes long. I like Tony Hinchcliffe. I don't know if I like him enough to listen to 11 minutes of speech by him, but I can guarantee you we will at least listen to
the controversial parts.
Up to the controversial part, and we'll then give our comments. And then we'll get into the other stuff after that. But this is definitely like the dominant story of the week, at least was decided to be by the corporate news, the corporate press. So let's listen in and we'll comment. Captain, let me know any moment you want. I will pause and we will say what we have to say.
Madison Square Garden, how we feeling, huh?
Offended.
Oh, isn't this special? 17 years ago, I was sleeping in my car behind the Comedy Store in LA. And I'm proud to say this is my 4th time performing at Madison Square Garden, the most famous arena in the damn world. The American dream alive and well right here. This is very different than where I'm used to performing, though. I'm used to nighttime with people drinking, not so many babies in the crowd, and people that are obviously only here for Lee Greenwood tonight. Normally, I don't make my political beliefs a known thing. It's divisive for a comedian to do that, but just know I sleep well at night knowing who I'm voting for. Yeah. When I lay down and my head hits my pillow, it is a fantastic pillow, by the way. I was staying at the Four Seasons up by Central Park one night, and I laid my head down, and it felt so good. And I thought to myself, what an amazing pillow. I have a little bit of money now. I could buy a good pillow. And I took the pillowcase off, and there it was. My pillow, my pillow, my pillow. And damn it, I bought 4 of them. And if you use the promo code KillTony, you can also buy 4 My Pillows. There's serious stuff happening, people. I live in the great state of Texas now. 18 years in Ohio, 20 years in California, and I got to see California turn to absolute horrendous thing. And traveling the world, I got to see San Francisco turn into one of the most demented cities, one of the greatest downfalls I've ever seen. And that is where the other candidate worked for 2 decades. And it's absolutely wild to see. And in Texas, stuff is really, really crazy. We're right there by a wide open border Where are my proud Latinos at tonight? You guys see what I mean? It's wide open. There's so many of them. It's absolutely incredible. Believe it or not, people, I welcome migrants to the United States of America with open arms. And by open arms, I mean like this. It's wild. And these Latinos, they love making babies too. Just know that. They do. They do. There's no pulling out. They don't do that. They come inside, just like they did to our country. Republicans are the party with a good sense of humor. Free speech is under attack, people. I host a show, and each week I get updates what words we're allowed to use and not use anymore. It's happening right now the past few years. It's a real thing. And, you know, used to be able to tell people to Google stuff. My mom's a boomer in the state of Ohio, and there's no convincing her of anything. She's eating the cats.
Fucking boomers.
She's eating the dogs. They're eating the pets up there.
Look, he's made fun of boomers now at this point as well.
Wild times. It really, really is. And, you know, there's a lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico. Okay. All right. Okay. We're getting there. Again, normally I don't follow the national anthem, everybody.
Okay, so I'm going to stop right there because that was the controversial statement. And I'll be honest with you, I thought that was the strongest joke so far throughout the first few
He wasn't landing a lot, yeah.
No, he was kind of bombing, for going for a stand-up comedian. And let me just make the point here that you could hear the crowd groan almost in agony at that joke specifically. You kind of heard it in the background.
Yeah.
They didn't take to it well. So with the context of that being said, the crowd's reaction, the fact that this is Tony Hinchcliffe, he's an offensive, outrageous comedian. This was framed as a Nazi party rally at MSG, akin to the 1938 American Nazi Party rally. But the crowd groaned at his offensive joke about Puerto Ricans. Do you think that an American Nazi Party rally would have groaned at a serious take like that if it was meant to insult the Puerto Rican community in the United States?
No, of course not. Also, would a Nazi party have Jews and people of color and Muslims and Hindus? And Tony Hinchcliffe is gay. Would they have gays?
Is it really? I had no idea.
I'm like 99.9999% sure he is. Would they have all this diversity? Would the Nazi party really allow all this diversity to come up on stage and share their bit?
Yeah, no, they wouldn't, right? And I'll be honest with you, like, kind of lame by the MAGA crowd there that they didn't find that joke funny. I thought it was the fucking best joke so far. I laughed at it. My pillow one was, bunch of boomers there, right? Who are offended by offensive community, offensive comedy as well. So the whole talking point around this, which we'll get into next, we'll show you some examples of why it's become, of who's pushing it and why it's become such an offensive thing. It's also just lame. It doesn't land, in my opinion. And it's just not true, obviously.
If I may, what I consider this is bait, hook, line, and sinker. The Democrats took it. They got an offensive comedian to come up there who has a ginormous following. So once again, Trump's genius campaign is reaching millions of different people. He understands the podcast community is a new form of media. He took this comedian who has a huge following, got him to say some offensive jokes, and the media bought into it hook, line, and sinker. Because not only did it draw attention to what Tony said, it also drew attention to he ain't gay, yo. I'm sorry. People were saying all over the internet he was. I'm only going by what I was.
We got a bunch of comments here. We'll bring up here in a second. I'll let the captain finish.
My mistake. I said I was 99.9% sure.
All right. That's why you always live 1% like Lysol.
Exactly. Anyway, I really feel like it was, complete bait, because here comes the corporate media with, all their smarts, and they're openly talking about Trump's mega rally at Madison Square Garden, bringing attention to that instead of just talking about policy. They are failing. The left is behind in the polls. This strategy of Trump is Hitler, it's the Nazi group, is not working. So you draw more attention to his rallies to show that this man can sell out Madison Square Garden. Kamala's not doing that.
Mm-hmm. I also think there's, which I'll get into here in a second, but there are a couple of really good comments here. So
yeah,
randomly came across your Rumble. He had been called a gay Woody Toy Story character so many times. Shout out to Trump Media for that. Yeah, let's bring up some of his comments here in the meantime. Let's see. Chris is going off.
Yeah, Chris has been on a tirade.
Yeah, Chris says, I'd like to point out that a lot of my people, Puerto Ricans, are mad at Trump for blocking aid for relief. Contrary to popular belief, the governor of Puerto Rico blocked Trump's aid. What else does Chris say? I'm an American first and foremost. My grandparents came from PR and went to visit multiple occasions, but the government down there is absolutely corrupt. Yeah, that's a good point. We give PR a ton of money in financial aid. They are citizens automatically. They are eligible for Social Security and other social services. Now, with that said, every time it's time to vote for becoming a state, they automatically turn it down in a vote. So I'll be honest with you, I would also turn it down. I think it's great that they don't have to pay federal income tax. That's a great trade. I'd make that trade immediately if I couldn't vote for president and I didn't have to pay taxes. I'd take that deal any day of the week. So I don't blame them for not voting to become a state and all that stuff. All right. That being said, Cap, any other thoughts? And then I want to start showing some of the reaction, for context.
No, let's get right into the reactions.
Let's do it. All right. So who do you think of all people? I mean, I feel like this is obvious, but who's leading?
The View, CNN, MSNBC,
no, come
Tim
on
Waltz,
now.
Kamala.
It's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
I didn't even think of her.
Right, this is in her backyard.
Mrs. Puerto Rico. Miss Puerto Rico 2024.
So she says, so this is just one of the tweets of hers, and I have some more after this, replying to herself, and I thought this was the interesting one. She says, and before people try to act like this is some PC, overly sensitive nonsense, I've been to Kill Tony shows. I'm from the Bronx. I don't give a shit about crude humor. But don't pretend that you support Trump. Your support for Trump is a joke. Own it. You're doing a set to support him. That's a choice. And she's replying to Tony Hinchcliffe, who said, these people have no, Tony Hinchcliffe's response was quoting AOC, or a video of AOC. And he says, these people have no sense of humor. Wild that a vice presidential candidate would take time out of his busy schedule to analyze a joke taken out of context to make it seem racist. I love Puerto Rico and vacation there. I made fun of everyone. Watched the whole set. I'm a comedian, Tim. Might be time to change your tampon.
Your tampoon.
Thought was pretty funny, but I just want to go back to what AOC said, that she's all for offensive humor and she's not PC or offended or anything like that. Well, yes, you fucking are. Right?
Like going
she's
on a tirade about it.
Right. You can't say like I'm all for offensive comedy. I'm from the Bronx, yo, so I'm really tough. Like I'm from the Bronx too, right? And a lot of my friends are Puerto Ricans. We call them the king of the trash realm. Chris's literal Legion of Doom nickname is Spanish.
Yeah.
Always, we were making fun of them being late because they were mowing lawns or something like that the other day for a Halloween special.
Well, what about the New York Mets joke?
Yeah, right. Like, yeah, exactly. New York Mets. Yeah, I won't even get into that one. Probably get kicked off of YouTube for that one. But that's just
that one
shit
actually
talking.
is offensive.
That's what real fucking dudes do. We just shit talk. People make fun of us because we're Italian and whatever. No one gives a fuck.
It's that damn toxic masculinity that we're.
The fact that it's stand-up comedy. He literally prefaced it by that he's a comic. Right? Yes, it was a bit of a political speech, but mixed in with a stand-up comedy routine. And again, I just thought that was the funniest fucking joke up to that point.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It just shows the left has nothing left to give. They can't talk about nuance or policy because Kamala grew up in a middle class and didn't own a house. Her mother didn't own a house until she was already in high school. And, they can't explain a opportunity economy because the opportunities haven't arose yet in the economy, right? So they got nothing to talk about anymore. And now it's just this last-ditch effort to a smear campaign. Like I said in a group chat earlier, Trump was supposed to die in July or whenever they originally shot him, and Kamala was not supposed to get this much exposure. Bottom line, you know?
And I did say, too, back at the time, that she had to stick to the pre-planned videos that were filmed, not do the live events. not do the live interviews because she wasn't going to do good in those. And unfortunately, that plan didn't work right off the bat. I was right? Like she wasn't able to stick to the pre-cut interviews. She had to eventually, transition over to some of these long form interviews, which she's looked terrible. And her poll numbers are now in the toilet.
I mean, she can't do 60 minutes, even with them editing the answers, which they should be sued for. And I think people are trying to sue them. She completely failed the adversarial Fox interview. And then she even blew a CNN town hall to the point like Anderson Cooper had to like clap back at her.
Look, man, I'm being objective here. I don't like Kamala Harris, obviously, but it's been a disaster.
Yeah.
I don't think that this whole thing around Puerto Rico is by accident either. Captain, if there's one thing throughout this election cycle that me and you specifically have covered very well and in depth, it's Trump's game in New York, right? We went to the rally in the Bronx. We went to the rally at Nassau Coliseum. We've talked to a bunch of people, right? We've had Professor Giordano on and asked him about Trump's chances to win New York. Trump has deployed a strategy. He's paid attention to New York. He's gone to the Bronx specifically several times in Latino neighborhoods, right? There was that recent video that we showed last week, some of where he was at the barbershop in the Bronx, right? Some of those guys were definitely Puerto Ricans in there.
Yeah.
So make no mistake, this is not an accident, harping on this thing. Like they are trying to take this and be like, oh no, we've lost some ground to Trump in the Puerto Rican community, in the Latino community, in the Bronx, in New York City. Let's take this. Let's frame this as the American Nazi Party rally. And look, they're making fun of Puerto Ricans at the American Nazi Party rally, and hope that people aren't going to understand the context, left out the whole context of his opening remarks about how he's a comedian, etc. And it's essentially a bit. And if you think I'm crazy, let's go back to everyone's favorite bartender, AOC. What else is she tweeting during this time? She says, organizing ask, I need every Boricua on here to take that rally clip and drop it in your family WhatsApp and group chats, especially if you have family in these states, and give them the link to iwillvote.com while you're at it. A tu sabes. And she quote tweets statistics over Puerto Ricans by state: Pennsylvania 450,000, North Carolina 100K, Wisconsin 65, Michigan 50K, Florida 1.1 million, and New York 1 million. So there you have it. That's all it is. It's
political gamesmanship.
Yeah, it's not based in reality.
No,
it's not at all. It's just to be honest with you, I've heard some people like to the point. I've seen, I forget his name, but I've seen one comedian say that this was a setup, that Tony Hinchcliffe is really like an agent of the Democrats because he got a deal. And this guy was saying that Tony Hinchcliffe has a deal with Netflix. And he was like, who's involved with Netflix? Obama. Right. So and he got this, Hinchcliffe got this huge deal with Netflix recently. And he went up there and he did this on purpose to make Trump look bad. Look, man, I don't know.
Still not really making Trump look bad.
Right. But I don't know about that. Like that. I'll be honest with you. I don't believe that. I think Tony Hinchcliffe went up there and tried and just did his brain.
I can see and understand for sure that's a perfectly good conspiracy theory. Excuse me. But at the same time, how do I want to phrase this? I could see that that's a perfectly good conspiracy theory. But on the other side of all this, it is good news. The woke mob is dying, is gone, is on life support because usually right now, Kill Tony would be off air. He'd be losing his Netflix deal. They'd be debanking him. He'd be banned from Twitter, all because of a joke that is quote unquote too offensive. And let's be real. When we get to the tweets of the week, you might even have this clip stored for later. I have a clip that I'm excited to show for tweets of the week. They're only mad because it's a comedian at a Trump rally. Joe Rogan was deemed the worst guy ever because he's interviewing Donald Trump. Anything that is, wrapped up in Trump's world, the media just has to dub it the worst, the most offensive, this, that, and the next. And, if you're a comedian, this is what you're going to deal with.
Well, I love you, Cap. It's a good point, but I'll be honest with you, that's exactly what AOC said. She's not even hiding that. Like, she literally said, it's not that you're a comedian, it's that you went to a Donald Trump rally and you supported him. I mean, she openly said that. So
yeah, they're only mad
correct.
because he's supporting Trump.
Yes,
Yeah,
you're correct, man. Look, I also thought that obviously this is like fake outrage, and it's interesting to see, as I think we've called it, like Maslow's hierarchy of oppression, or just like the priorities over what these shit libs are outraged over. And you have literally over 500,000 people dead in Ukraine, 40 plus thousand people in Gaza dead from the war. But this guy said a mean comic joke about Puerto Rico, and this is wall to wall in the last couple of days. Like, and it's the same people, not just, I mean, AOC is not exactly the same. I've seen this echoed around the DNC shit lib machine, right? It is the same people who push every war. Like, I could see Liz and Dick Cheney being like, well, that's not really in good taste, that joke that Kill Tony made there. And, this is the kind of thing.
but more bombs to Israel.
This is why we're supporting Kamala Harris, because of things like this. Meanwhile, they're for every fucking war that gets people killed. But like, what are your priorities in life, man? Is it like actual mass murder of people, or is it mean words that don't actually cause any harm to anybody whatsoever?
Sorry, I've been reading.
I know,
comments.
There's a lot of
we never get this many comments.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll pick a moment later to go over them. Otherwise, it is easy to get distracted.
Lost in the sauce.
Yeah, lost in the sauce. I like that. There's more. It wasn't just AOC. Let's go to everyone's favorite Attorney General of New York State, Letitia James. And she said,
Before we get into Letitia James, I got to say shout out to Eric Adams. Trust me, if he gets indicted and kicked out of office, Scagz and I will be back on here popping bottles, just giving him the Andrew Cuomo treatment. But he stood up for Trump, and they were like, how could you let him use Madison Square Garden? And he's like, everybody has the right to share their piece, and everybody has the right to use the great state of New York to share. So I got to give him kudos. He's been taking a lot of shit from the left, and he's trying to swing upward if he can.
I think he's looking for an ally to help bail him out of the mess he's got himself in, and he's hoping that if he plays nice with Trump, perhaps, like he's taking sides.
Yeah,
like in Game of Thrones, Tywin Lannister during Robert's Rebellion decided to just kind of sit around and not take any sides, and then at the end he moved in and took King's Landing for King Robert.
Yeah,
that's like what Eric Adams is doing. I think Trump's going to win, so let me go with him.
Yeah,
maybe he'll bail me out of my own trouble here that I'm in. But anyway, Letitia James says, "Don't you dare come to New York and insult our Puerto Rican family. Puerto Rico is one of the most beautiful places in the world, home to millions of Americans. We won't tolerate this vile and racist behavior. It's not what this country stands for." So there you have it. That is
everything's racist. Everything is racist. This is racist. This is racist. This is racist. Everything is racist.
That's it. That was their October surprise.
Yeah.
That's all they had. Like I said, it's just evolved into name calling. That's all it is.
That's why we are at where we are at, because their October surprise was so idiotic, so weak and pathetic, that they are literally picking one sentence out of an entire MAGA rally to make headline news about. And it wasn't even anything Trump said.
It's so funny, too, the idea that this is a Nazi Party rally, and they hearkened back to the 1938 American Nazi Party rally. I mean,
that was full of Democrats.
Are the Knicks Nazis? Are the Rangers also Nazis? Michael Jackson performed there many times.
Yeah.
He's a Nazi. I'm sure at some point, I think the DNC has held one of their whole conventions at MSG. Were they Nazis?
Hey, how many times has
Hitler
Beyonce...
drank water. Hitler drank water. I drink water too. Am I a Nazi? It's so weak.
Nazi right here.
Yeah.
Yep. Did Beyonce headline Madison Square Garden millions and millions of times?
Nazi. Jay-Z, Linkin Park, I've seen there. Seen Eminem there. He's a Nazi. They're all Nazis. Mm-hmm. Speaking of Beyonce, I mean, you saw how
she got booed?
No, not even that she got booed, but over the weekend, she endorsed Kamala Harris and showed up at her campaign rally in Texas. And the campaign basically and like surrogates were tweeting that she was going to perform at the rally, and a lot of people showed up. Now I'm going to just again, did they all show up there for Beyonce? No, but did probably a lot of them? Yes. And then Beyonce ends up just walking out on stage, talking for about 5 minutes, endorsing Kamala and going away. So like,
was not received well.
Yeah, it wasn't received well. And I got to be honest with you, man, I do think that's an honest to God strategy that they're pulling. Like, hey, we're going to have this famous singer come and perform. And then they get like the clips of the big crowd sizes to try and like drum up some fake energy that isn't really there.
Yeah,
but
Taylor Swift's going to drop a new album.
Right. But even that, not a good strategy, because how many people were disappointed?
Yeah.
How many of those people are going to be like, man, like
lied to again.
Maybe that could be a reason why someone doesn't end up voting for Kamala Harris. Like maybe they would have. But
Listen,
then you are like personally you are personally like offended. Like you went there. Like we were talking about how we kind of are still down on baseball and the Yankees because they canceled our tickets during COVID because we weren't vaccinated.
Yeah.
And we're kind of personally fucking offended by that whole thing. Imagine if we went to something expecting Metallica to play, and then they're like, "Hey guys, see you later," and they don't actually play. Like, and you took the time out of your day. You'd be pissed.
And you got to think too, this doesn't come across our minds because me and you sit back and we look at policy and listen to nuance, and we have our own principles of how we think the country should be ran, and we have to find the candidate that matches our principles to as close as possible. But if you're somebody who is like, I'm voting for Kamala Harris because Taylor Swift told me to, yay, you would be furious that you showed up to a rally to watch Beyonce play and she doesn't perform.
Yeah. Danny, shout out to Danny. He says, almost like when we went to the Global Citizen and kicked towards the back once Metallica came on. Yes, exactly like that. If you remember.
And I got to yell at Nancy Pelosi. For
Although
2
I
seconds.
wasn't mad at Metallica for that. Maybe they shouldn't have played at such an event, but the whole event itself was some sort of weird globalist agenda thing. So I think that's it, man. I've had enough about talking about Nazis and whatnot, which looking back at the cycle of discussion the past 2 months, going back to when Tucker had on Daryl Cooper and that whole thing and the points we were trying to make, and how a lot of people, I guess, who would be like me and you were castigated as the woke right for trying to make points about like, hey, look, there's this weird thing about World War II, and it's constantly being used to justify every war, and it's constantly being thrown around. And people on the right were like, well, no, you can't question any of that stuff. Like the establishment and people on the left are just using that over and over. No one's Archduke Franz Ferdinand from World War I or Ho Chi Minh from North Vietnam. They never use any of those talking points. It's just Nazis, Hitler, World War II. Everything is that all the time. And it was interesting to see how the last 2 months, like that just
biggest bad guy of them all.
Again, anyone who questioned that was told you're crazy. But then that was just hammered away over and over and over and over for the next 2 months after that episode with Daryl Cooper. That was interesting in and of itself, because that pierces both sides of the spectrum of the whole political discussion. Because people, conservatives and Democrats, were both outraged about that entire thing. But then it was just literally, like I said, just everything's World War II. The last 2 months, everything. I don't know, man.
Hey, everything's racist, and everybody I don't like is a Nazi.
Chomp Media says, you guys are dude on the left looks Armenian. That would be you, Captain, and you look Armenian. Now we're both Italians. Yeah, we're both Guineas. There you go. Which we're close to Puerto Ricans. Guineas and Puerto Ricans. We're like
sure.
We're peas in a pond. All right. So let's move on. You think you're ready, Cap? Move on to Joe Rogan and Trump, which actually had some nuance. I didn't get to watch the whole thing. It was a 3-hour marathon.
I have 1 hour exactly left.
Oh, do you? Yeah. It wasn't as good as I thought it'd be so far. What I saw, but it was interesting to say the least.
I gotta say I liked it, and I gotta say, still going forward, I think it's time for politics to address independent media. I think it's time for politics to understand that your main MSN, mainstream media, whatever, is failing because of what they have done over the past 10 years. And going forward, if you want to be president, there's going to not just need to be some type of debate, but there's going to have to be a long-form conversation for people to get to know who you are. I think this is wildly important moving forward. Whether you agree this was a great episode or not, I think this is going to be an important basis for future elections.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. People, the long form format is huge, right? And that's great because there's room for nuance in a 2-hour conversation, a 1-hour conversation, a 3-hour conversation, right? You're going to learn more. You're going to think more. You're going to flush out your entire perspective on something way more in 2 or 3 hours than you are in a 1-minute clip on CNN that's like already pre-framed in some certain type of way that's supposed to evoke a reaction out of you based on this particular Overton window view, allowable opinion.
And you're able in the long form conversation to give your side of the story. You know, not that they did talk about it, but maybe in the last hour they did. I don't know. But like the whole very fine people's comment that we've debunked 1,000,001 times. You know, here's your opportunity to talk about something like that in a little bit more depth with somebody who's being objective to the whole idea and just going, what's going on with all that? How come people still you know what I mean? Like just objectively asking and getting a full answer instead of just the normal rhetoric we get.
Yeah, there's something big about there just being time to have a real conversation like you would in real life, where you know, and opposed to again when you're on CNN and they like put you into this box where they're like trying to make sure that they like ask you a gotcha question, but then they don't give you enough time to like fully flesh out your response. And then if you're not really good at, like JD Vance is really good at going into those scenarios and like, you know, trouncing them, but that's like, you know, few and far between. And most people aren't like that. And that's not like a natural way of conversation. So it's a very fake, phony, unrealistic, unorganic way of communication. And it's dying. It's dead. As the boomers pass beyond the Rainbow Bridge,
not fast enough,
it's going to be something, you know, it's over with, in my opinion. Right. And it's for the better, right? Podcasts have had a tremendous, that's an interesting, you know, thought, you know, like to put a cap in the last couple of years, since we even started doing this, man, like podcasts became way more influential and important than they were in the past 4 years. And it's for the better, right? Is every podcast great? No. Is every podcast agree with exactly what me and you agree with? No, of course not. But there's something for everybody. And I prefer someone listen to, you know, Crystal and Sagar, although I don't agree with them on almost everything. They're getting way more, you know, highbrow information from them too. Or even, you know, I can't even say, I was gonna say Destiny maybe, but no. Let's not. How about Jimmy Dore, man? Jimmy Dore is awesome. I love that guy for an example.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I love Pat Bet David, and he doesn't talk politics all the time. He's a tried and true Trump guy. He's politically charged in that area, but it's not all politics. And I love listening to him talk, man. Yeah,
it's entertaining. All right, so Rogan and Trump. Let's start off with, you know, Rogan is still entertaining the idea of having Kamala Harris on, and I am. And I said I was
watching that as well.
I was way more interested in seeing that, to be honest with you, than Trump.
Yes, me too.
I've heard Trump now on long form many times. Let's see. So Rogan tweeted the full episode, and there is an issue. So since there's an issue with searching for this episode on YouTube,
can we just talk about that for a second? Sure. You know, the mainstream media refuses to allow us to talk about any conspiracy theory. Nobody's speech is being canceled. We don't have control over that. Meanwhile, what is it, like 300 million videos are loaded up to YouTube every day. And here we are with Joe Rogan, the king of the castle.
Right.
He is the king of the internet.
And real quick, Donald Trump, the most famous human being on planet Earth at the moment.
Yep. Most famous and most hated. All of a sudden, YouTube we are going to upload this podcast, our podcast with 16 people listening live right now. We're going to upload this podcast and everybody's going to be able to find it. No problem.
I don't know about that. We're pretty shadow banned ourselves, buddy.
Fair. But somebody who brings straight traffic to your website week in and week out, all of a sudden you got an issue on your hands.
Yeah, that's also an interesting contradiction. You'd think that YouTube's in the business of making money, and they would just allow their most popular show to just exist and be seen. I'm not saying they even have to push it, right? They
Right.
just leave it alone. But no, they actually do the opposite.
Yeah.
So does that tell you that there's perhaps some more to what YouTube is doing than just making money? You know,
I'd say yes.
During
I'd
this
say
election
yes.
cycle, man, we haven't talked much about it, but we got demonetized, for
Mhm.
good, basically, on YouTube during this election cycle. And look, let me air my gripe with them. It's so disrespectful, the manner in which they do it.
Yep.
Like, they do communicate with you, and their issue with us, or the reason why they demonetized our channel, was because they said that we don't create original content. That
Yeah.
we don't create original content. This is episode 268. We've done 268 episodes of us talking. That's original content. And, they asked us to create an appeal video, which I went and did. I wrote a letter. I filmed a video. I showed them how we filmed the podcast. I showed them the shack in the back here, the cabin, the studio, the cameras, Final Cut Pro, StreamYard that we used. I screen shared it. Like, I produced a video showing how we make the podcast, to show them that, like, we do this. This is what we do. It's original. We do it ourselves. Yes, we make news clips, but I edit them. I put captions. I put pictures. And they were like, no, you don't. And their response was basically like, no, you don't create original content. You're demonetized.
You don't create original content. We want you to create.
It's just, again, going back to the thing before, it's like, it's a personal insult.
Mhm.
Like, all the work we've put in, it's a lot of work, man.
Yes.
To make a show and hang on for this, like, out of the, a lot of the Patriot Podcast Network, we're one of the last shows standing at this point, right? It's not easy. Like, the Captain and I are really fucking stubborn. That's why we're still around. But, like, to insult us and say that we don't create original content, I was fucking offended.
Yeah,
like, that's something to be offended over. Someone offending your body of work.
I don't even know how you can look at this and be like, this isn't original content.
It's ridiculous. It's
two guys talking about different topics every week.
That's not what it actually even is, obviously, right? It's just that's adding insult to injury. It's obviously that we've said things in the past, and it's just like, whatever, fuck this.
Just like when we get an email notification that episode 26 is taken down.
But you got another one of those.
Really?
I forgot if it was an episode or we got. I forgot what it was recently. We also got the clip I made from last week with Jon Stewart got removed for copyright because it's Jon Stewart's show. I'm like, it's the fucking vice presidential nominee, and then it's us commenting on it right after. So, all right, enough complaining about YouTube. There's enough of that. Let's get back to Rogan and Trump here that we were discussing before. So, Rogan posted a video on Twitter, and then he responds to himself. He says, also for the record, the Harris campaign has not passed on doing the podcast. They offered a date for Tuesday, which would, I think, at this point be election day, wouldn't it?
Which is just stupid. If it's not today, when did he post this?
Today
at 9 a.m. Okay, so next Tuesday is election day, so that is even dumber.
Before I even read any more, this has been the worst campaign by Kamala Harris ever.
No,
why would you
in the history of campaigns?
I don't. Again, if you're going to go on Rogan, you got to do that a little bit ahead of time. If you're going to like throw a Hail Mary and hope to convince some people on Rogan's platform, you can't do that on election day. It's too late.
Yeah,
right. Like,
and even if they interview on election,
but by the time it's out, it's going to take hours to watch. You're probably already voted. It's over.
You know what it comes down to? It's just she's incapable of doing this. She'll hype up, I'm going on Rogan, and then go on Rogan, and the show won't be produced until after the election, so she can't fail any harder than she already did. You know what I mean? Like, it'll come out the day after the election, and nobody will not vote for me because they saw how terrible I did on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Rogan continues on to say, but I would have had to travel to her, and they only wanted to do an hour. I strongly feel the best way to do it is in the studio in Austin. My sincere wish is to just have a nice conversation and get to know her as a human being. I really hope we can make it happen. I'll be honest with you. That's what I wanted to. I wanted to see someone force Kamala Harris into a box to just be authentic. And if anyone was going to be able to do that, it's Joe Rogan. And I thought that would have been fucking fascinating. Yeah. But it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. Maybe it will.
She's the most inauthentic person on the planet, and that's why she can't do it. Like I said in our group chat before, she only wants to do an hour because she only has an hour of pre-approved, memorized responses. She's going to sit there and Joe's going to ask her a question and she's going to tell us about growing up middle class. Or, there's she has no interest in the UFC. There was a lot of nuance between Trump and the UFC, and I thought that was a general waste of time. But two guys who are interested in a sport, and that it just proves that like Joe Rogan is not interested in a gotcha piece. He's not interested in ambushing you. Joe Rogan for a while did not want to have Trump on, and then he did talk about how it is all about timing. And there was no gotchas there. Let's talk about your policy. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about what you like and produce a great episode.
Yeah.
And she can't do it.
Yeah. I think Rogan himself would say sunlight is the best disinfectant. And I think Kamala Harris is actually self-aware to understand that concept. That if she is put into the sunlight, or as you say, if the light is turned on, the roaches scatter, right?
Yeah.
So I think what's the best thing a roach can do? Stay in the dark.
Yeah.
For the most part.
And, it just leads back to this is the worst campaign ever because you are leaving at minimum 100 million viewers on the table. You're leaving record-setting, groundbreaking content on the table simply because you're an imposter.
Maybe they know something we don't know, and playing the harm reduction strategy, perhaps is the right move for them.
I hope so.
I don't know. We will see a week from today.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll see a week from today. I don't know if we will. So our plan again is to do a live stream on election night. We're gonna be covering live results. My goal is to stay on until someone has announced the winner. Although I don't have a week to just podcast live, so we'll stay on for a couple hours and see what happens.
Yeah, there's already
our hard cutoff is like 11 or 12 p.m.
Yeah, there are already talks of we won't be able to count all the votes in a single night. It's going to take the bullshit. Anything after November 5th does not count, pal.
Okay, so let's go real quick back. Last thing, let's go back to Trump and Rogan. And this is probably one of the most interesting things I heard that I saw so far throughout what I've watched. And Trump and Rogan are discussing the income tax and taxes. And let's listen in, and then let's give some comments, and I'll give some of my thoughts afterwards.
Now we have a lot of good issues. We had the other day. Think of how simple some of these things are. We're trying to get cars built in the United States. Detroit has been really tough. It's been a disaster. They have a huge factory, a huge car auto plant being built by China in Mexico, make cars, sell them in the United States, put everybody out of business. Right, here we go again. I said, if that plant is there when I'm president, I will put 100 or 200% tariffs on every car. They'll be unsaleable in the United States. And they just announced they're not going to build the plant because they think I'm going to win. Think of it. They're not going to build the plant. This was the biggest plant in the world. It would have more than all of Michigan makes. That's how big. This is what we're getting to. And I said, if that plan goes up, I want them to understand if I win, I'm going to tax those cars at the rate of 100 or 200% apiece so that you won't be able to sell them in the United States. They just announced they're not going to build the plant.
Yeah, I read this.
I did a big favor for our country by doing that. And I'm not even there yet. To me, the most beautiful word, and I've said this for the last couple of weeks, in the dictionary today, is the word tariff. It's more beautiful than love. It's more beautiful than anything. It's the most beautiful word. This country can become rich with the proper use of tariffs.
Did you just float out the idea of getting rid of income taxes and replacing it with tariffs?
Well, okay.
Were we serious about that?
Yeah, sure. But why not? Because our country was the richest relatively in the 1880s and 1890s. A president who was assassinated named McKinley. He was the tariff king. He spoke beautifully of tariffs. His language was really beautiful. We will not allow the enemy to come in and take our jobs and take our factories and take our workers and take our families unless they pay a big price. and the big price is tariffs. And he'd speak like that, but he was right. And then around in the early 1900s, they switched over stupidly to, frankly, an income tax.
All right. What an idea, first of all.
Dude,
right?
I things that I am willing to do to get rid of income tax, I can't even say on this podcast. Okay? I am all in favor of this. I don't care how outlandish or uneconomical it is. If we could eliminate income tax, boy, oh boy, I am down.
It's interesting. I've even been critical at some points in some of Trump's talk around tariffs, right? Because when you do put a tariff on something, normally the cost of the tariff is just passed down to the consumer. But that's not necessarily the way that Trump is talking about it. He's talking about it almost as a tool or even just a threat to get foreign companies to stop kind of undercutting American workers and the American marketplace. Now, the response to this, which is bizarre, but they're libertarians, so they are bizarre folk.
Autistic, as you would say.
Autistic, as I'd say, which is correct, including myself to some extent or another, is that... this is the guy that libertarians are supporting. He wants to use price controls and, put controls on the free market. Now, while I understand, I'm a big believer in the free market. My question to libertarians that are outraged over this would be like, how do you propose we impose free market principles on China, right? Which operates in effect their car industry, their glass industry, their technology industry, their phone industry. Every company is one and the same with the Chinese government. Maybe not exactly one and the same, but they are one and the same. Like there is a Chinese Communist Party operative in every corporation there. Now, that's great for China to some extent. They've done much better the past couple of years since they've embraced a little bit more capitalism and shifted away from Mao's version of communism. But how do you propose, how is it, this is my question to libertarians, how is it a free market principle to allow a state-controlled company to come into America and sell products at a lower price to Americans, destroying our own business? And the reason why they're able to create things that are cheaper is because they're essentially paying people dirt cheap slave wages over there.
15 cents a day, yeah.
That's not going to actually help us. I believe in free market principles, right? It's great. It's what's given us the most amount of wealth. But within America, right, we can't expect other countries to just become libertarian free market Austrian economists. Economists. That's not how they operate. So to an extent, libertarian nationalism. Within our own country, we make the stuff, no regulations, free markets, Chevy, Chrysler, they'll all compete, and they shouldn't have to jump through all these hoops of government and whatnot. But
and bring work back here.
Right. That's great. That's good for us. I don't really give a fuck about whoever in China. That's their problem, right? If we're going to do better here, we need to embrace some free market principles within our own borders, and we can't just allow a Chinese communist corporation to come in here and then just blow the whole thing up. Yeah. And then we all live in poverty. We don't have any of that, right? That's their problem. I'm not saying they can't even come in here and sell us cars, right? And again, this is Trump's policy, not mine, right? But they will come in here and sell us cars, but they're going to have to, come back to our level, come back to the level of our society. I actually think it's a pretty valid strategy. And again, don't be autistic. We cannot export libertarian, economy to the rest of the world. It's not
can't even get
don't even have
libertarians in order to get on the ballot.
So I don't understand, man. Like, wake up, grow up. This is not every libertarian, but it's very frustrating to see. Like, to be.
No, I think it's a great question, and just, I mean, this is so as pro-Trump as I am, I have no problem being critical of him. Right now, he's not in office. He's not doing anything to annoy me. There's nothing for me to comment on. I think he's running a great campaign. This is definitely a topic that if Trump wins, we are going to follow.
Yeah.
Because you can't just say shit like this and there be no accountability. This is something that'll change people's lives. This puts more money in our pockets. And look, if you got Trump derangement syndrome, please take the money out of your pocket and put it in mine then. Okay? So, and what I love about this idea, on top of, the free market, is just the general bringing industry back to America. Build it here without regulations. Obama fucked us sideways. I'm pretty sure Bush did too, with his trickle-down economics that forced everybody to go to India and China and the Asian Pacific Islands and stuff to build absolutely everything. If we bring it back here, more people go to work, unemployment goes down. If there's no income tax, more money in people's pockets, the entire country becomes profitable.
Yeah. Right.
And as you say, it's not our problem what happens to China. Just like it's not our problem what's going on between Israel and Gaza right now. It's not our problem between what's going on between Ukraine and Russia right now. We need to worry about ourselves.
Yeah. America first.
Yep.
Right? That's the goal. Yeah. I'm all for it, man. I think that it will be interesting if he does become president to follow up on these things. It's worth noting that that the federal government was primarily funded before the 19 teens by tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
The federal income tax.
It is possible.
I'm just saying it's a crazy thought. Like most Americans now just accept that there's a federal income tax that literally every single time you are paid, the government take some of your money.
You ever see the
normal? That used to not be a thing. That didn't exist before.
You ever see the tax chart where America taxes you so much throughout the year that actually January, February, March, and half of April you work for free?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Again, going back to libertarians, my God, the Overton window has shifted so far that the current frontrunner for president is talking about repealing federal income tax, and you fucking autistic idiots are there purity spiraling over the fact that he's proposing tariffs as an alternative.
Yeah,
it's a win no matter what.
Those losers could go give Chase Oliver the 1% that he's going to get.
Chase Oliver, right at the end of the day. Yeah, but again, it's a good thing at the end of the day, no matter what, because the window's coming our way.
Yeah,
right into our world.
Yeah,
but then you will have time and future years to build upon that after there's some success that will come with repealing some of these insane overreaches of the government, which includes federal income tax and whatnot. And there's a million other things, the Federal Reserve, all that shit. Of course, I get all that, whatever. But this is great. It's a great start.
It's a start.
Trump has sounded very libertarian on a lot of things. It really has. So it's great. He actually has a chance to win, and maybe he won't do any of this shit. And then we'll operate.
Yeah, then we'll rake him over the coals.
Yes. Then we will operate from there on, criticizing him every single day on this show. I thought, going back to Jimmy Dore real quick, I posted a clip today where Jimmy Dore made a great fucking point about the war in Gaza, and he was criticizing, liberals who were like, oh, well, who don't want what's happening in Gaza and to the Palestinians to happen, and they're like, oh, well, Trump's going to be worse on it. And I'm like, well, that's I've pretty much thought I don't really foresee Trump being much better on the issue.
Yeah.
But Jimmy Dore's like, what's Trump going to do? Dig up the dead kids and kill them again?
Yeah.
This has already happened under the current administration. How much worse could it possibly get under Trump?
Well, because then it won't be their administration doing it. So
yeah. Great point, man.
Political gamesmanship.
Yeah. All right. I think
Tweeds
that's it
of the week.
Tweeds.
Do you have new ones or no?
I do. Do you?
Yeah, 2 new ones.
Okay. Hang on.
And my first one goes to with what you just said, and my second one, is it a video? Yes, the second one is a video.
We'll start with mine. So my first one, speaking of libertarians, is from Angela McArdle, the chair of the Libertarian Party. And she tweeted a photo of herself at dinner with Donald Trump. And it's in response to a video of Kamala Harris where she was talking with Shannon Sharp, and she says, don't think that you're in Trump's club. So Angela McArdle goes, actually, we had a very nice dinner. No invitation from Kamala, though. Going back to the whole thing, libertarians have a seat at the table. Donald Trump has offered this. He's literally having dinner with the chairperson of the Libertarian Party. So, yes, Chase Oliver is the nominee for the Libertarian Party. But if he just so happens to not win the presidency, at least libertarians in some other form have the ear of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And perhaps he will pander and do a couple things that we wanted him to do because we supported him, right? Maybe he won't, and then we will operate again from there on out. But it's better than nothing, especially given the fact that the Libertarian Party and libertarians have accomplished nothing ever.
Ever. Is this okay? Yeah. So this is directly to what you were just saying. Actually, Elon Musk, great hat. Make Orwell fiction again.
Yeah.
We are operating in strange, made up fantasy times.
Sure, I will say that it's a reference to George Orwell's 1984 book, which is behind me over here. It's not as bad as it used to be. That it was way more Orwellian during the COVID times than it is now. Like you said before, like the tides are shifting.
Also,
and yes, there's a lot of Orwellian shit that happens still, but it ain't as bad as it used to be the last couple of years.
No.
It was way worse.
Also, apparently, from what I've been seeing, is there is some Fauci documentary that's supposed to come out any day now.
Is there?
Yeah, and it doesn't look good for him.
Okay.
But he'll never see justice, so.
That will be fun. Okay. Here is my second tweet of the week, and it is by my man, Tucker Carlson.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Spill the tea. He just posts screenshots of text messages. So I saw this. I'm like, what is this? This has got to be juicy and interesting. So Tucker Carlson posts screenshots of his iMessages. And it's from some guy called Nico. It says, "Good day, Mr. Carlson. I hope you're well. I'm Nico Grant, reporter at the New York Times. I wanted to give you an opportunity to comment for an upcoming article that takes a look at how political commentators have discussed the upcoming election on YouTube. We rely on an analysis conducted by researchers at Media Matters for America. Could you kindly provide us with a comment or decline to comment by end of tomorrow, Tuesday, October 29th? Thanks so much for your time. Here are points we plan to include." By the way, look how many missed texts Tucker has, 204. I can imagine it's from. Here are points we plan to include. Media Matters identified 286 YouTube videos between May and August that contained election misinformation, including narratives that have been debunked or are not supported with credible evidence. Researchers identified videos posted by you in those 4 months that contain election misinformation. We feature a clip of you saying, "All the sadness we've seen after the clearly stolen election. All these bad things happen, but people I know love each other more." I also have a few questions. Number 1, are you a member of the YouTube Partner Program? Number 2, if so, how frequently does YouTube demonetize your videos? Number 3, has YouTube sent you messages, emails, or notices in the last year that your content contains misinformation? Thanks for your time. Tucker Carlson responds. So the New York Times is working with a left-wing hate group to silence critics of the Democratic Party. Please ask yourself why you're participating in it. This is why you got into journalism. It's shameful. I hope you're filled with guilt and self-loathing for sending me a text like this. Please quote me. To which he responds, "Thank you for your prompt response. Would you like to address any of the points or questions above? Would I like to participate in your attempt to censor me? No, thanks. But I do hope you'll quote what I wrote above and also note that I told you to fuck off, which I am now doing. Thanks." So I thought that was pretty G move. By Tucker Carlson
that's
to
awesome.
just share his text. And going back to what we kind of got into before, this is what's going on with YouTube. Like there are massive, again, like why are they acting in a way that's not beneficial to their own bottom line? It's because they're a massive political machine campaign, censorship
CIA operative,
pressuring them from behind the scenes. Plus, how many people that work there are actually on board with all the shit willingly? And then there's a pressure campaign behind the scenes, digging up, information and then looking to spin it, in some positive New York Times article and put pressure, drive outrage. YouTube better do something about all this misinformation online. Blah, 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 blah. There you have it.
Yeah, they're going to share any of the misinformation about the Hunter Biden laptop?
No, right. Yeah. Of course not. So there's just some evidence of what we were talking about before. Okay, so Cap, your next one's probably the video,
yes,
right?
My last one is the video. All right. We spoke about Tony Hinchcliffe doing his Puerto Rican joke.
Yeah.
Well, look at Carlos Mencia. No, I'm sorry, George Lopez. Sorry, everybody. I'm going to get canceled now. George Lopez dropped a pretty racist joke about Mexicans at a Kamala rally. Let's play the clip.
Donald Trump said he was going to build a wall, and George Lopez said, "You better build it in one day, because if you leave that material out there overnight."
It's a good joke.
Donald Trump said he was going to build a wall.
It's a great joke.
Yeah.
But this is the problem with the media and all of its, as Joe Rogan says, infinite wisdom. Term I actually really like now. You sit here and you try to cancel Tony. You have headline news about how demeaning Tony is to the Puerto Rican community, and here you have George Lopez.
Same fucking thing.
The exact type of same. Puerto Rico is a dirty island. Mexico's full of thieves.
Yeah. But they're both funny fucking jokes.
Yes.
There was obviously only outrage over one.
One.
A point I forgot to make before about Tony Hinchcliffe. I had a clip queued up, but then I realized I can't play it because we'll get a copyright fucking thing. But it was from the roast of Tom Brady. We did play some of that, actually, with some of that funny, whole exchange at the roast of Tom Brady. And my God, he openly made racist jokes about Kevin Hart, everyone on the panel. I just remember the Kevin Hart one because it was a black joke. It was like the most crazy, outrageous, racist joke. And everyone laughed, including Kevin Hart. And it was a highly rated Netflix roast. And real quick, no one in the political sphere mentioned it besides us who were laughing at it as a thing we were just watching. It wasn't outraged. There was no outrage campaign from the Democrats.
Nope.
There was no political coverage of it in the news whatsoever. Why? Because it had nothing to do with Trump and politics. It was just a roast, right? But then when the same guy goes to the political sphere and makes the same joke, which he says before that he's making a joke, it becomes the end of the fucking world. Yeah. It's so obviously fake. It's ridiculous.
And I also want you to know, if you're not familiar with the Kill Tony, you have no idea how many broke and down on their luck comedians Tony Hinchcliffe has lifted up into absolute stardom with his show Kill Tony. To the point, these people went from 2-3 bookings a month to on tour with like Bert Kreischer. You know what I mean? Like opening for him and stuff, doing 10 cities in 10 days. These people are being shot to the moon because of this guy's company and what he's doing.
Man, communists aren't interested in people being successful. No. Okay. My last tweet, it's a funny one. It's by Flapper, who says, "Who are you waving at, Mr. President?" "Oh, it's nothing. Just thought I saw an old friend." And it's a picture of Shinzo Abe,
the Japanese prime minister
who got assassinated and was Trump's good friend.
Yeah.
There is a meme about him being assassinated and Trump like seeing his ghost all the time and whatnot, which is just one of my favorite memes ever. And I thought this one was fucking hysterical. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked what I shared on Instagram today. It's like, guy went from working at McDonald's to headlining Joe Rogan in a week.
Yeah.
Next month, he's going to be president.
Yeah, exactly. All right, man. Let's wrap it up. Don't forget, next week, election special. 2 days. Halloween special. Strap in. The two new men got a lot coming for you.
We got a lot coming for you. For anybody that's watching us and not the Yankees are down by 1 at the bottom of the third. It's 2-1 LA. Doom Nation, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope you guys enjoy the Halloween episode. I hope you guys enjoy the election episode. Make sure you get out and vote. Just because Trump is up in the polls does not mean you sit home. And
make sure you like, share, and subscribe as well. If you can't even do that, how the fuck can we expect you to vote?
Yeah, you shouldn't have. If you're not liking and sharing and subscribing, you should lose your right to vote. On that note, adios.
Probably gonna get pulled down for election misinformation on that one. That last comment there.
I just cut it then. It's the very last word.
All right.
All right. Good shit, man. That was a good one.
Yeah. All right.
All righty. I'll talk to you Thursday.
All righty, buddy.
Can't get rid of each other now.
Yep.
All right. Bye-bye.